Okay, it was early this morning, about 5:45. I'm going to talk to you guys about lineage and about why my family, how do we know my lineage, guys? How do we know it? Well, let's just look at logically what my family is saying. Okay, we're going to break that down and just say, well, who is right logically? All right? And then, I mean, I've shown you family trees and it hasn't done anything. So let's just look at the logic of what my family is saying. First of all, I'd like to point out it took them 5 years to say that we're British. This is now English specifically. This is now a new story. So the fact that it took 5 years after a lot of discrepancy back and forth of many different claims of what we were, what our European lineage is, why did it take 5 years? That's my first question to my family. Why did it take 5 years? Because it seems that if that's the case and you really didn't know because you would have spit it out 5 years ago to clarify, then you didn't know. Then you yourself weren't educated enough, or you were withholding information. Either you're being sketched, or you're uneducated, or you were making claims before you knew them. So in any of those scenarios, if you don't know, why would I be expected to? Now, that's not the reality. The reality is I do know where my family's lineage is from, but they're not displaying that they actually knew, or they would have stated it clearly 5 years ago. It's not that hard to say where you're from. Right. So now you're presupposing that my family would have first explained it to me or been educated themselves enough to have explained our lineage. And you're holding it to, she's so crazy, she didn't know. Well, you yourselves are, it's indicative that you didn't know, or were withholding information. And in either of those scenarios, I wouldn't be accountable for the information of which you didn't know or withheld. Okay. Second of all, we are American, very American. I have proven to you through my grandma's obituary that she was a daughter of the Revolution. Daughter of the Revolution, DAR, D-A-R, is a group of people whose family had to have necessarily helped during the Revolutionary War. Well, if you helped during the Revolutionary War, you had to have been here prior. We were here much prior. You don't need to know all that to know that my family has been in America, at least on her side, for hundreds of years. So we are very American. So if anything, the typical American stance is, if you've been here that long, that you're American as you know, I said humble pie, which is what my family should be eating, as apple pie. And that the typical mentality of a assimilated American is that you're a Euro or wherever you're from, but that you are American. That's the point. You're in the great American melting pot and you are part of that. So suddenly we're not a part of that. So we're negating our American pride as well now. That goes out the window. Anything you want to make a claim. The most accurate one was, we've been in America for hundreds of years. We are American. But you want to go to hundreds of years, so you're going prior to that. Interesting. Okay. So let's break it down. You're saying that I'm predominantly English Welsh. Well, it's funny because years ago you actually said we weren't Welsh, and I pointed out, but Jones is a Welsh last name. Suddenly, and this was about 2 years ago, you said we weren't Welsh. Now you've contradicted and said, oh, predominantly, I'm not sure if you're saying predominantly Welsh or English, but we are Welsh, and that makes sense. Why? Because Jones, again, is the last name from Wales. Now, my grandfather's name, which I've shown you his obituary, yes, he was a Freemason. His name, Olin Coleman Jones. So that is 100% Welsh name. Just the name is a Welsh name. Okay. It's been my claim to you that he was predominantly German, that Welsh and Irish. Well, now you're claiming that the Welsh is true. So, okay, we at least are in agreement of one thing. Okay. Kind of hard to negate it with a name like that, right? Well, what is Wales? Wales is part of the British Isles. It's nearby England, it's nearby Ireland, and it's nearby Scotland and that whole area. And it's the more, in comparison to Ireland or Scotland, it's a little bit more refined. As I understand it, a little bit more refined. So, okay. I'm mostly slate and sheep and stuff, but still. Okay, and then England has, had the stakes in money. It's the predominant dominator of that area, right? Okay, and we'll go into Scandinavia because Scandinavia is also more upper class than Germany. So you're giving me a higher class and then say that I have an MO that negates down my that puts myself above where I'm actually from. Or so she pretends to be that her background is more wealthy than it is. That's her MO. But you just did the opposite. You just made my background more wealthy and refined. Whereas I'm claiming the opposite. Blue collar workers. Irish and German? That's blue collar, man. And I'm just like, okay, so now you're negating my own MO. Okay. But you made the claim that I was predominantly English. It couldn't be. Because my American grandma, you submitted a DNA test and said, but see, it says here, it actually said that she was predominantly German. My American grandma. And then secondary, hundreds of years ago, secondary Scandinavia. Well, first of all, you can't take DNA tests to heart because they only show you the probability of your DNA coming from a region, not your personal, where your family moved from, but the probability of if you have this DNA, it's probably from this group. So the whole thing isn't accurate. These are not accurate tests. However, you said that they were accurate. Okay. So if that is the accuracy, then that would be predominantly German. They didn't say anything about English in there. Fascinating. So how could I be predominantly anything if it's only coming from a partial trait of one grandparent? If he's, let's say, and it doesn't sound like this is what you're saying, an English 50-50 split between English and Welsh. Well, first of all, wouldn't it be likely that the families, considering that they are so close in that region, would have migrated around in that area to, say, Ireland? That would be very possible to have Irish descent in there. Yes, it would be very possible. And also, I couldn't be predominantly that, being that it would be then an eighth of my lineage, correct? Right. So it couldn't be predominantly English no matter how you split it. Also, you said I was faking a British accent, which was just for fun and conversation, because when people do an accent and you join along, Joe Polly, that, you're just having fun back. But you said it was so delusional. She's not even English. Oh my God. But now you're claiming I'm predominantly English? Then it wasn't delusional. It was just weird. But really, you want to look at the girl who's Dutch, American, ginger, who's faking an accent and nicking all their words in her blog, where she's writing the flat, and going to a flat from the tube on, that's delusional. So okay, now that whole thing, that overreaction would be like, well, it's kind of weird, but she is predominantly English in her background, so it's not that weird. And now all that overreaction goes out the window. Okay. So we couldn't be predominantly English according to your own DNA test of the American side, because you got the grandma and the grandpa. And now suddenly we're Welsh when we weren't before. Fascinating. But really, we're American. Okay, that's the American side. Now, let's look at the German side. You are claiming she's delusional. She's Scandinavian, specifically Swedish, but she says she's German. And then you say I was born in Germany. It's pretty simple. Where you're born is what you are. Okay. But on top of that, you see my grandma's house in Germany, southern Germany, which is where the Celts were, right? Okay. So grandma was there. Grandpa was there. My mom was there. My uncle's there. So that's generations of German, but we're predominantly Scandinavian. But my favorite part of you saying that we're predominantly Scandinavian isn't just that. Not only do we not look it, they don't speak the language, there's no actual proof of this, but on top of that, you specifically said we were Swedish Viking. Now, I like to point out to you that the Vikings existed. They got pushed back by my relative, who actually was an English king, but back in like 800 AD something, okay? He was the main one to push back the Vikings. So the likelihood of me being Viking, my family's pushing him back. It doesn't really seem like it. Don't know if you're claiming this king of kings, the only one appellated with the great after his name in England. Big deal. I only say this because it means you're not just related to a king. We're not. We were the Habsburg Empire. Jesus Christ. It means that my family wasn't just part of royalty. It means that they fucking ruled Europe basically for 400 or 500 years. Not just a family in it. No, the main family. I'm not claiming they're nice people or good people. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it was a very big deal. But let's ignore that. So, okay. The Vikings, so now you've got one side of Nicotine, the other one. The Vikings were, what is that? They're pirates of the sea, whereas the Celts were nomads of the land. So tracking their lineage is a bit hard. You know that they went through, that they did go through England, that they did go through Ireland and Germany, southern Germany as well. Well, these are all the places you're claiming, but you say that I couldn't be a Celt, that's delusional. It sounds to me that even according to your own story, they would be most likely to be correct. Fascinating. But on the Viking side, these are nomads of the sea. They used nicknames. They didn't have records. They are anti-government, so they weren't taking captives and writing down their names and this is who I procreated with and here's my marriage license. They're pirates. So they actually weren't in Sweden because they're at sea. So a Viking is at sea and therefore not domesticated. That's what a fucking Viking is. And at the time that you said that we were Swedish Vikings, I just love this one, that we were Swedish Vikings, well, those territories at the time of the Vikings were being warred after. So what is Sweden today wasn't Sweden back then. It's fought over land where this boundary was pushed back and pulled back and da-da-da-da-da. It's still disputed land. So you couldn't possibly be a Viking and know that you were from Sweden because a Viking is of the sea. So your records are of the sea. You're wherever you're at. You're a fucking pirate. But you're sure that we were from Sweden, an area that you're not even sure existed as it does today, back then. Oh, this is fascinating, you guys. So just logically, and on top of that, so what you do know is this. Regardless, my family is being inaccurate in the reporting. If anything, they should have said we're German American. Why? Because if my grandma on my American side is predominantly German, and my German side, even if I just am only personally born there, it would make me German. Just like if I were born in Mexico, I would be a Mexican. Makes sense? But on top of that, you know that my lineage on my German side is predominantly German. It doesn't matter what. And the reality is we were there for hundreds and hundreds of years. But you want to say Sweden all of a sudden from some removed thing? Well, it's not my mom. It's not my grandma. It's not my grandpa. It's not my uncle. And it's not me. They can say whatever they want. But the fact is you live there. You were born there. And you can't prove otherwise. Then you're fucking German, dude. That's why you speak that language. That's why we look German. We don't look anything. I look German. In Germany, people look at me and go, you're German. It's obvious. Look at your face. I know. And the reality is in my DNA, I'm over 85% German. I'm predominantly German. A blue-collar place. Okay, with a horrible history. It's nothing to claim, but that is the facts. So, you know that gaslighting is happening because they're saying, well, she should say she's Scandinavian from the time from 800? Why would I claim a heritage so far back from a Viking time? Besides, I like the Vikings. I think they're badass. Their ideology, their mythology is very close to the Celts. And they also had the same enemy as the Celts. Now, they warred each other a little bit too. They stole the Celtic women. But it's badass, dude. I would claim it if it was my own. It's not. It's the only thing more badass than a Celt is a Viking. The Celts settled before them. They gave up. They went and assimilated with the Christians and the British and wherever else they landed, southern Germany or wherever else they just decided to give up. Celts were nomads. That's what they were. So, okay. So this isn't making, you know that they're gaslighting either way because they should have said she's German and predominantly American. And on the American side, and what you don't know, what I've not proven to you, and I don't know how, is that Olin Coleman Jones, my grandfather, was predominantly German as well. But from his name, you just hear the Welsh. Now, on top of that, Terra, you guys said that Tara and Terra. Well, Terra is a different name than Tara, with a different spelling. Terra is Terra. You can't prove that that's my name because it's not my name. My name is Tara. So now you're saying phonetics. Well, she's mispronouncing it for whatever reason that I would be mispronouncing my own name. Okay. And then you go, oh, from Scarlett O'Hara. Scarlett O'Hara? That's an Irish name. Now, in movies you've got scripts and the actress reads it the way she does. It could very simply be she mispronounced it. I'll have to look it up. She saw a name, pronounce it this way. Now if you look at phonetically, T-A-R-A. So if the A's match phonetics, and ta, ra. Okay? E doesn't come up. Why? Because it's not an E. So while you're pronouncing it like an E, I know that some people that spell it like I do pronounce it as an E. It's a completely different name. Terra. Now in Gone with the Wind, that was T-A-R-A because it's Irish. My name is Irish. Okay? But you said that I'm not Irish. That's interesting. I'd have that first name be Irish. And then you're making a Irish movie. I mean, she's Irish and it's their land. Now, what is Tara? Tara was a place where kings met up. It's a hill in Ireland, a sacred hill for kings to meet up, which implies what? Royalty, right? So that's what that is, and that's what I'm supposing I'll look it up. Gone with the Wind, it would be a reference to Tara. She probably just mispronounced it in the movie. It happens all the time in movies. Ask the Haitians of Clueless, okay? So, Vivian Lee, right? Probably read it like this, okay? And then now it's Terra. But it's spelled Tara, and should be, if it has to do with the Irish lineage, should have been pronounced Tara in that movie. Terra is T-E-R-R-A, and it means terraform. I think it's Latin, and it means earth. Well, you guys have never claimed that my name means earth. So now this is coming up, and now it's Latin. Now I have a Latin name, and no one else in my family does. So okay, you guys, what's going on here? And now you're intentionally mispronouncing it. It's not correct to pronounce Tara, to change one letter to another, one vowel to another vowel sound. That's not correct. Like Torah wasn't correct. Remember when you said I had a Jewish name with a Japanese meaning, but it doesn't even mean this, but it had a Scandinavian O, but it wasn't even a Scandinavian O. Remember they said that? It was an O with 2 dots, but that's not Scandinavian, but it was a Scandinavian O, but the meaning would have clearly been Japanese, and what happened to all of that? Oh, you guys are still going on, and clearly none of this is true. Now I want to point out also that Herbster, my previous last name, was hyphenated. You said it was a middle name, and I proved to you no, in fact it was a last name. Not only does it say on my birth certificate and passport that I was born in California, but it also says that it was Herbster hyphen Jones. I'd never had a middle name, but you claimed it was a middle name. I've disproven that as well. Herbster means harvester, and it's for wine, someone that harvests wine, and or autumner, some harvest of autumn or autumn, is any of these meanings, and that's German. But you're saying Scandinavian, but it's not a Scandinavian name. And Gert, there's no Scandinavian Gert. It's a German name. There's no Scandinavian. And Karin, I don't know how she's been pronouncing it on camera, but Karin, there is a Scandinavian Karin, but it's Karin. So she's not been saying her name Karin. If she's been pronouncing it Karin, then she's been pronouncing it like a German. And I'll ask you this, Gert, Mom, go ahead and have a conversation in Swedish. Yeah.